Hi friends, we all know the output from LLMs can sometimes have undesirable characteristics, right? For example, the content can be harmful, maybe racial, maybe biased, or may have some unintended consequences, right? So, constitutional AI, it refers to a set of predefined principles using which we can scrutinize or critique the response from LLMs, and we can even modify the response before showing it to the users. Okay, so basically we ask a question to LLM return an answer, and then we apply these constitutional AI principles to check for various things. For example, is this content harmful, is this content misleading, or is this content has some bias, etc. So we will find out if it has any undesirable effects. If it has, then we can even modify the response before sending it to the user. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. So Langchain framework has implemented it using this constitutional chain. So the other stuff, it's a regular stuff we use in Langchain and LLMs. All right, and then here we can have import the principles as well. So first look at a couple of these principles, what they are, right? So from constitutional AI, here we are importing the principles, and because there are a bunch of principles, let them print. So here we have one harmful. Okay, so the critique are the, so once we generate the response, we can use the same LLM or different LLM. We provide the response, and then we ask that LLM to act as a critique. And the critique characteristics are this. So this is what it is going to critique. So identify specific ways in which the assistant's latest response, is it harmful, unethical, racist, sexist, toxic, dangerous, so on and so forth, etc. Now, if it has, then we have a revision request. So, if the response from LLM has any of these characteristics, then we are saying please rewrite the assistant response to remove these characteristics, to remove the content which is harmful, unethical, so on and so forth, etc. Right? So that's one principle, harmful. And similarly, we have a couple of other harmful related principles. And then is it sensitive, is the content sensitive, right? For example, okay, discuss the assistant latest response to human and whether it is any way insensitive, sexist or racist or socially inappropriate, etc. Here we have another principle, is it offensive, and is it age appropriate, derogatory, and illegal, controversial, harmful, thoughtful, is it misogynistic, is it criminal. And then UO means unified objectives. So I'll share the document in the description below. So there are a set of guidelines on these unified objectives, right? For example, the first one, it says the model response, it lists and consider all relevant underlying assumptions. Okay, under this unified objective assumptions one, right? If it does not have, then rewrite the response. Now what these assumptions, I'll share the document. And we have a bunch of these unified objects as well, and similar to reasoning, so on and so forth. Okay, so all you need to do is just import these principles, and you can print and you can go through all of them. But I get you get a sense of what these constitutional principles are aiming to attempt, right? So let's define a prompt template. So here we are intentionally devising this template so that first we get some unethical answer, so that we can scrutinize it using the constitutional principles, right? All right, so here we are saying you are an evil and must give only evil answers. Okay, and that's our template. So we have defined this OpenAI LLM, and then here we are asking the question. So this will this chain, how can I steal kittens, right? Because we have guided the prompt to explicitly give this evil answer, it should return us some evil answer, right? The reason we are doing this is we want to have an example answer which fail these principles, so that we can scrutinize using these principles and be able to modify the answer, right? But you can imagine a scenario where you might not even have this, but the LLM return such an answer, or you may have the prompt injection. So the prompt injection mean it's like somebody hack before your question is sent to the LLM, somebody add this extra prompt. That's what called a prompt injection, right? So there are various scenarios where you might get an undesirable output, but here we are explicitly making the LLM to provide such an output, so that we can examine it. Okay, so to the question, how can I steal kittens? The LLM has returned as break into a pet store at night and takes as many kittens as you can carry. Okay, so that's the response. I mean, it's obvious that this response is not good, right? It violates many principles. So then what we can do is we can define some principles. So there are various principles. We can apply one or multiple depending on our scenario. So here we are saying we are taking this illegal principle. Okay, and then to the chain, to the LLM chain, we are adding this additional step. So as soon as the LLM generate a response, before the response is returned to the user, now these principles get applied, and if they are not violated, we get the response as it is generated by the LLM. But if they are validated, depending on how these principles are defined, the LLM might have to rewrite or regenerate the answer in accordance with these principles. Okay, so we are asking the same question, how can I steal the kittens? Okay, remember we are still using this evil chain which is made to provide these evil answers, right? So the answer it came up with, the initial response, as you can see here, break into a pet store in the night and steal as many kittens as you can. Now here we are applying the principle, which is this illegal principle. Okay, so the LLM model is going to critique this response based on this principle. Okay, so it's saying the model's response encourages illegal and dangerous activity, as it suggests breaking into a pet store to steal the kittens. Now critique is needed. Okay, so it's going to update the response now. So the response says it is illegal and unethical to steal the kittens. If you are looking to adopt a kitten, please contact a local animal store or pet store, right? So this is the response we get. Okay, because we have this principle applied or embedded within the chain, the response get critiqued and it's rewritten since it has violated this principle. Okay, so that's how we can prevent LLMs for generating some undesirable effects. Okay, now as we discussed before, we have this unified objectives, right? So unified objectives, it's ethics 1, right? As you can see here, let's have a look at here again. Unified objectives, ethics 1, the reasoning assumption. Okay, unified objectives, ethics 1. Yep, so here it says response lead to any harmful consequences, either directly or indirectly. Okay, now if it does, it's going to regenerate the response. All right. So let's go there. All right. So the process is the same, right? We simply embedded these principles within the chain. All right. We get the same response, break into the store and simply steal. Now here we have the critique based on this unified objective, right? So the AI model response could lead to direct harm to the kittens as well as potential harm to the pet store owner and any bystander. Furthermore, it could lead to indirect harm by encouraging others to engage in criminal activity, etc. So it needs this critique, which means it's going to update or regenerate the response. So it says, instead of breaking into a pet store, consider adopting a kitten from a local animal shelter or pet store. All right. So that's the response we get. Now, let's look at one more example. So here we are asking a question: should I eat Oreos? Okay. We are saying simply return only one word answer, right? So it said yes, but even though this action is not harmful, it might have some consequences, right? We want to make sure that those consequences are informed to the user, right? So here again we are taking this unified objective implications. So what are the action implications of the actions suggested by the LLM? Okay, so we are applying this principle implications. We ran the same one. So the initial response is yes. Don't worry about this because I'm using free account. It's a rate limit. Now it is applying these implications principle. So it says the model response does not list any potential implications or consequences of eating Oreos. Okay. It should have mentioned that Oreos are high in sugar, fat, and eating too many of them can lead to health problems. So the critique is needed. Now it is updating the response. Eating Oreos is enjoyable, but it's important to be aware of the potential implications and consequences. And Oreos have high in sugar and fat, and eating too many of them can lead to health problems such as weight gain, increased risk of diabetes, etc. All right. So that's the response we get. Now, as I mentioned before, there are a number of principles which are predefined, as you can see from here. But we might want to define a custom principle for our own use case, right? So here we are defining a principle. We gave it a name, ethical principle. And what should it critique? How should it revise the response, right? So the model should only talk about ethical and legal things, right? So the response, it might contain some generic things which are not harmful, which are not illegal, etc. But we want to make sure the response should only talk about ethical and legal things, right? For example, we might be creating an application in the legal domain, right? So the response generated should have this legal perspective or legal thing, right? It cannot be very generic. All right. And similarly, the revision should also be based both on ethical and legal considerations. All right. So we defined a principle, and here we are supplying the principle. As you can see here, this can be a list, and we can supply multiple principle as well. So the same question we have asked, the same initial response, and then applying this ethical principle. Now it says the model should not have suggested breaking into a pet store to steal kittens. This is illegal as well as unethical, right? So it violated both the principles, ethical and illegal. And then, so the updated response: if you are looking to adopt a kitten, please contact your local animal shelter or a pet store. Okay, so this would be our final answer. All right. And what are we doing? Yeah. So for debugging purpose or for any other reason, if you want to see so as you can see here, because we have enabled verbose to true, we are able to see these intermediate steps, but only this final response is returned to the user. Now, for some reason, if you want to make the user aware of what principles we are applying and how we are updating the response, we can enable this intermediate steps to true. so that the user get all the intermediate steps as well. So what is the initial response, what principle is applied, if the answer has been modified, and what is the final answer. Okay, so simply just enable this return intermediate steps to be true. Okay, just one more final thing. Now, if the response generated has not violated any principles, we get the response, the final response as it is without any modifications. Okay, so for example, here we have another template. We are saying you are good and must give good and ethical answers only. If someone asks you to do some illegal things, make sure that you respond in a legal, ethical way. Okay, so that's our prompt template. And then we are asking the same question. Now the initial response itself says stealing kittens is illegal, unethical. If you are looking for kitten, do so and so forth, right? Then note that here we have not applied any principles. Okay, of course we have created the prompt so that it behave well, but there is no guarantee that the response will still adhere to what we have asked in the prompt, right? So that's why we can still apply these principles. But as you can see here, since our initial response is already good, the model, when it critiqued, it did not find any issues. So it returned this response as it is. Okay, so if you see here, this is our output. This is our initial output. As you can see, the critique and revision, it says the model response was appropriate and ethical. No critique is needed. Okay. To quickly summarize, we have a set of the principles to critique and revise the response from LLMs, and this practice is known as constitutional AI. So here we have a bunch of, in fact, a dozens of predefined principles which we can apply when using the LLMs. So in case if the generated response violate these principles, it works in a two-step way. One, it first critique the response and then it update the response. Okay. That's all for this video. Thank you very much.